Buckle up, everyone, for a deep dive just for you. We're heading over to Pakistan today, Islamabad to be exact.
Sounds fun.
We found this awesome travel podcast episode all about this one spot in Islamabad called Shakarparian. And the host could not stop talking about it. You could hear their excitement, like through the headphones.
Yeah, I was just listening to this one earlier today, and you're right. They were really into this place. So what is it exactly? What's got them so excited?
Well, it's a park, but not just any park.
Okay.
The podcast host kept describing it as the heart of Islamabad.
The heart, huh? That's a pretty strong image, right? Like it's the central point of the city.
It is. It's right at the foot of these mountains of Margalla Hills.
Yeah.
With like panoramic views of the whole city.
Wow. So you get this blend of nature right there in the city. That sounds really cool.
And get this, the podcast host said, it's like the city planners built Islamabad. And then we're like, oh yeah, and we'll put a park here.
So the park is almost like an afterthought.
Totally.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if maybe they were thinking about the park the whole time. You know, like making sure the city grew up around this beautiful natural space.
I see what you mean. It's like they were designing the city to showcase this park, to make it a centerpiece.
Yeah. I mean, imagine looking out your window and seeing those mountains every day and having this huge park right there where you could just escape the city whenever you want.
Escape the city sounds pretty good right about now.
Right. So one of the things that really caught my attention in this podcast was the Pakistan Monument. Have you ever heard of it?
I have, but I don't know a whole lot about it.
So it's this monument shaped like a blossoming flower, and each petal represents a different province of Pakistan.
Oh, wow. So it's like a symbol of the country's unity.
Yeah. They said it was designed to represent the strength and unity of the Pakistani people. Kind of makes you think about all the different monuments around the world and what they represent.
You're right. It's interesting how each monument tells a story about the country it's in, its culture, its history, its values.
Totally. Some monuments are about victory, some are about sacrifice, some are about remembrance, but they all have something to say about the people who built them.
And the Pakistan monument seems to be saying something about Pakistan's identity as a nation. It's striving for unity.
Now, okay, I gotta ask, did they talk about the food?
Oh my goodness, yes. The podcast host raved about the food in Shakarparian.
I'll bet.
Apparently you can get anything there, from street food to fancy restaurants.
Did they mention any specific dishes?
They talked about biryani a lot, you know, that delicious rice dish with meat and spices.
Yeah.
They were saying how every region in Pakistan has its own unique twist on biryani. Like it's a whole culinary adventure, just trying all the different versions.
And apparently it's not just the food itself, it's the whole experience. Like they were talking about having tea at sunset at the foot of the mountains.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Sipping tea, watching the sun go down. It sounds so peaceful.
The podcast host kept saying how Instagram worthy the whole place is. With the mountains and the monument and the sunsets.
Yeah. It sounds incredibly picturesque, but I think there's more to it than just pretty pictures.
What do you mean?
Well, you know how sometimes you go to a place and you take pictures, but you don't really connect with it?
Yeah.
It's like you're just checking it off your list. But if you take the time to learn about the history and the culture of a place, it becomes so much more meaningful.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like you're not just seeing it, you're understanding it.
Exactly. And when you understand a place, you appreciate it more. You connect with it on a deeper level.
Speaking of understanding a place, did they mention anything about the La Versa Museum?
They did. That's actually a great example of what we were just talking about.
How so?
Well, it's a museum about Pakistani culture. But it's not just static displays. It's like a living, breathing representation of the culture.
Oh, wow. Like what kind of stuff do they have there?
They have everything. Traditional music performances, craft demonstrations, a whole section dedicated to the history of Pakistani truck art.
What truck?
Yeah. Apparently it's a big thing in Pakistan, these elaborately decorated trucks. It's like folk art on wheels.
That's amazing. I've never heard of that before. It just goes to show you how much there is to discover in the world.
Right. And how travel can open your eyes to new things, new ways of thinking, new ways of life.
This whole deep dive has really made me want to visit Pakistan. Shakarparian sounds like the perfect place to start. You get the nature, the history, the culture, the food. It's all there.
It's like a microcosm of Pakistan itself. And even if you can't travel there in person, you can always explore it virtually.
Good point. There are so many resources available online these days. You can practically travel the world from your couch.
Exactly. And sometimes just imagining ourselves in these places can be enough to broaden our horizons.
So true. It's like a little mental vacation.
And who knows, maybe it'll inspire you to plan a real trip someday.
I hope so. Anyway, thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure. Until next time.
See you then.